What's going on, everybody? It's your boy JP, back again with another video. And today I have a nice little surprise for y'all. The Motorola ThinkPhone. This phone is really unique. I really like it. I like it a lot. I'm going to give y'all a rundown of the specs. This phone, it did come out, a couple months ago. It was announced a couple months ago, but it's trickling into different markets as we speak. It is April 2023 to it's the 15th to be exact, and I've only had the phone for a couple days. Like I said, it trickles to different markets. It was announced back in January. It was further showcased in February, and it is it's ending up in different areas as each month passes. This phone, oddly enough, it is a flagship, but it has the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, not the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, but it is again the 8 Plus Gen 1. So it is built on that same 4 nanometer process node. From TSMC, not from Samsung, which is of course a good thing. So you're not going to really, you shouldn't anyways experience any of those overheating issues, any of those throttling issues. Being that they're both also 4 nanometer. Of course, the Gen 2 does use a slightly more advanced 4 nanometer node, as is the case with commonly when technology advances as fast as it does, especially for mobile processors. But basically, the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 is still every bit a flagship for 2023, I think. It should usually constitute for a cheaper price tag. There are other flagships that are coming out even after this phone with the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 instead of the 8 Gen 2. Case in point, the just announced ZTE Axon 50. That was announced the other day. I know it wasn't just called the Axon 50. It was either the Axon, they either called it the Axon 50 Pro or Axon 50 Ultra. I don't remember exactly. It wasn't just the Axon 50, which means that later on down the road, few months from now, probably sometime in the summer, they may end up coming out with a lesser spec Axon 50 with just that name, itself. But the point in me bringing that up is that it was either a Pro or an Ultra, and it had the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. And as we know, ZTE already has phones out with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. The Nubia Z50 Ultra, and even the standard Z50. The Red Magic 8 Pro and the Red Magic 8 Pro Plus, if you're coming from China, has the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. So it's not even so much that ZTE doesn't have access to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 and that they were being forced to use the 8 Plus Gen 1. It's just, that's not the case at all. The Axons were, I thought anyways, their flagship. And for the ZTE brand, when we don't go into the sub-brands like Nubia and Red Magic, the Axons are. But for whatever reason, they're using the mid-cycle refreshed chipset of last year. Which, for the sake of this conversation, it's not old. It was a processor that came out last September, maybe last August, the earliest. So, it's not a year old like the standard 8 Gen 1 is, and there's tons of videos out that actually show the Plus being a huge upgrade over the standard, which isn't usually the case, but last year it was. But alas, I digress. We're talking here about Motorola and the ThinkPhone. And this phone does, beyond the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, of course, it has the Adreno 730. It does have that, back to the main processor itself, it does have that Cortex X2 that's clocked at almost 3.2 gigahertz, 3.19 to be exact. Again, it has the Adreno 730 GPU. No card slot, but it is dual SIM. This is the 8 GB variant for RAM, but it does have 256 gigs of internal storage, UFS 3.1. The RAM is DDR5X. It does have the selfie camera is a 32 megapixel. It's also the hole punch is very minimalistic, like a lot of your Xiaomi phones that I always rave about. It doesn't have that silver ring around it either, which is really annoying. So even though it's not under the display, you are still getting, maximum screen to body rate. You're still getting a maximum, you're still getting a maximum screen to body ratio, even with that visible selfie camera, which I think is amazing. This phone, let's see, let me go over really quick what's in the box here. It does have your fast charge. It does have your cable. And I took, this was actually in that box right there. And I didn't even know these came with it until I took the rest out of the box. I already had the phone out. But it comes with these little bullet style earphones, which is really cool. It has the Motorola logo on them. Of course, it's USB Type-C because this phone doesn't have a headphone jack. So you'd have to connect it to the Type-C, obviously. But man, when's the last time you've ever seen these included in a phone? And these are high quality too. That's really cool. I mean, it's already rare to see the charger in the box, let alone a fast charger and headphones. Samsung, Apple, almost everybody else for that matter, take note. The charger here, I don't know if I got this wrap on it, but if I'm not mistaken here, it is, I'm trying to think. I think it's, it's 68 watt. I was finna say 65. It's a 68 watt, a 68 watt wire charge. It also has 15 watt wireless charge, and that's pretty quick for wireless charge. It does get an Antutu score of 1,081,805, which is phenomenal. The Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 can actually do more than that. But that was just a preliminary, and that's really good for just a preliminary, just to get over 1 million, and it's not the Gen 2. Of course, 1 million was what was advertised for the original 8 Gen 1 to begin with. But of course, you also have real life, you have background processes, even when you close them all out, or you think you close them all out, you still got more running in the background. The best time to do it, they say, is when you restart the phone. But even then, there's other background processes that restart themselves as you're doing those tests. So, you have to really take those with a grain of salt. Antutu is my favorite. I know a lot of people have moved away from that and use Geekbench, where this phone actually gets 4,207. It's starting to thunder outside, so y'all don't mind the background noise there. I didn't even know we were even in for any storms. I thought we were just in for rain here in Shreveport on this lovely Saturday. But nonetheless, moving right along here, this is the carbon black color. And it is absolutely stunning. It is beautiful. It has the ThinkPhone logo there by Motorola, which I think is beautiful as well. It has a camera array. The camera array even has that carbon fiber design inside the glass. But the rest of the phone, while it's not glossy like the glass, which is a good thing, mind you, it has a very matte finish to it. It may very well be real carbon fiber. I know Motorola did back in the day have a phone made with real carbon fiber. It may not be, but it definitely feels fantastic when you hold it. You don't even need a case, really. I mean, I still prefer a case, not the one that came with this phone. As many know, I like those cheap gel cases, your clear TPUs. But this phone just has a great design. It is ultra thin too. The camera does it no justice. It is really thin, honestly. I love the way that the phone feels in the pocket there. That is the button that's exclusive to the ThinkPhone. A lot of your Think pads, your laptops that are Think branded, originally from IBM, which Motorola bought, or not Motorola, but Lenovo bought several years ago. just as they bought Motorola from Google. Um, but a lot of your laptops and your tablets with the Think branding have that red button there that you can program to other things, um, which is really unique. Of course, Motorola's. There's a lot of other Motorola's that have little side buttons like that, anyways. But you have your stylus phones, I think, have a dedicated switch to pull up the assistant, or that might have been an LG thing. I can't remember. It might have been a thing for both of them. So just correct me in the comments if you have to. But nonetheless, you got your power button and your volume rocker there. And I thought, okay, never mind. Okay, so I thought that was an IR blaster. It's not. It's one of the mics. They're one of the things that adds to the silence when you're making your phone calls and stuff like that. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, and that's sad because I've brought them up many times in the past. I'm just trying to move along here and make sure I'm going over all of the specs and the aesthetics of the phone itself. But let me go over that rear camera right quick because I know I went over the front and didn't go over the rear. But the main camera, which is actually really good on this phone, it's a triple. Obviously, it's a 50 megapixel main camera, 13 megapixel ultra wide, and a 2 megapixel depth camera. It does actually do, it is HDR10. It can do 1080p, 60 hertz, 120 hertz, even 240 hertz, or frames per second, I'm sorry, even 960 frames per second. Again, though, that's with 1080p. It does do 4K and 8K even, but the 8K is capped at 30 frames per sec, and 4K can do 60 frames per sec. For those that want to know. But it does have stereo speakers. They sound really good on this phone. Bluetooth 5.2. It does have video out of the Type-C 3.1 because it does have the Ready For desktop mode, which I actually have used and I really like. I haven't used it with this phone yet, but I have with many of the other phones and I really like it. It's like DeX. In my opinion, it's better than DeX. It can also do Ready For wirelessly. But of course, they always work better wired. It does have under display optical fingerprint sensor and facial recognition, both which work amazing. 5,000 milliamp battery. This phone is utterly amazing to say the least. It's a 6.1 inch P OLED screen that can do 144 hertz with HDR10 plus, a billion colors. The design without the ThinkPhone branding is very much like wrong finger. I didn't have it set to that yet. I normally do, but I didn't know. But this phone does have it has a very similar design as the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 powered, just announced the other day, the Motorola Edge 40 Pro, which of course has been available in China either in late December or early January. It was one of the first, if not the first, Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 powered phone. Of course, in China, it's known as the Moto X40. I almost had actually picked it up back in January. And it's designed. This phone, came out after it was even announced after, despite the slight downgrade in CPU going from the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 to the 8 Plus Gen 1. Of course, this phone was probably also already, not only already designed, but already done, probably, because it wasn't available everywhere when it was announced, but it did reach at least one area when it was announced shortly after. But then again, I guess it kind of pointless to say that, because your X40, when it was announced for the Chinese market, Guestop had it available within a week, if that. So I guess that's kind of moot point there. But the phones are very similar in the way that they're designed. The camera lens setup, they're very, very similar. Of course, you could probably also say that it's similar to last year's Edge X30, which was the Chinese version. Of course, later it came out as the Motorola Edge 30 Pro, in Europe, and then of course in the US it was just simply called the Motorola Edge Plus 2022. But I don't remember them looking exactly like this. Again, minus the ThinkPhone and the carbon fiber, but the camera array and the setup, I don't remember it being exactly like that, and that is actually exactly how they are on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 powered flagships, the Moto X40 and the European version of that phone. The Motorola Edge 40 Pro. And then, of course, whenever that phone comes out in the US, it may be called the Motorola Edge 2023, or I'm sorry, Edge Plus 2023, because there'll probably be a standard Edge 2023 as well. But don't be surprised, actually, if it comes out in America with the similar naming scheme as they do in Europe, because we did actually get an Edge 30 phone back in December that had that really nice magenta color with the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, I think it did have, or it might have been the standard 8 Gen 1. No, it was the 8 it had the Snapdragon 888 Plus. And I don't think I did a video to that phone, but it had that really nice magenta color, and it was the Fusion. And when it came out in the US, it actually maintained the European name, which was the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion. It came out very late. December 12th, I think, was the release date, if I'm not mistaken, because I had a hard time. They didn't ship my order right away, and I had to reorder it. Oddly enough, they lost it, but that was a debacle all in its own that happened before the beginning of the year. So, that might have been a telltale that they are going to shift the names to the European names, in the US. So, just take that with a grain of salt for what you will. But the ThinkPhone, the point behind it, because the price of this phone is actually the same as the just released, at least in Europe anyways, the Edge 40 Pro, which again does have the slightly better processor. It has the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 versus the 8 Plus Gen 1 found here. And the prices are very similar. I mean, I think there might be a $40 difference. And if there is a $40 difference, this one is the more expensive one, actually. And it has a lot to do with the ThinkPhone branding. There's a lot of security measures taken here. This phone is really kind of aimed at businesses, not necessarily IT departments specifically, but businesses where they can keep the phones all connected on a secure network. But it doesn't keep any regular person from buying it. But that's kind of why it's priced the way that it is because of all of the security, which it does have. You can find a lot of it from within the Motorola app. I don't know if it was through here. Yeah, it was. Yeah. It's like the Motorola security. And this is an app that wasn't found in other Motorola phones that I remember, like your privacy controls and your network protections and stuff like that. It just has a lot of, and of course I got a lot of it turned off, but you even have like pin pad scramble and stuff like that. And it's just what it sounds like. It does just what it sounds. It just kind of scrambles the numbers so they're not in the same place in case you use a pin to get into the phone. Pretty minimalistic boxing beyond the bullet style headphones. You have your reading material. You got this little hard case that comes in it, and I don't really like it. It's kind of a pain to get on, and it's a pain to get off. And I get it's the point of the keeping the phone secure, but it doesn't really protect it because it leaves the sides open and stuff like that. And it's not even a curved display. It is flat, which I also really like because I think the X40 / Edge 40 Pro is curved. And this is not, so I definitely kind of prefer this design more so, than that phone. And of course, most people aren't going to, if anybody for that matter, aren't going to really notice a difference in processors. The 8 Plus Gen 1 was such a great processor compared to the standard variant. and the 8 Gen 2 really just kind of took what made that processor so great anyways and just kind of added to it. Of course, you got the better GPU, obviously, the Adreno 730 to the Adreno 740. So you have to kind of take that for what you will. But yeah, I'm kind of afraid to tell the price of this phone because some people are going to think that it's too much. It's depending on where you buy it from, where you get it from. It's $900 to $1,000. But you know, it's the security that you're kind of paying for. But again, it is 144 hertz AMOLED. It is Gorilla Glass Victus. I didn't go over that. It is Gorilla Glass Victus. It does have an aluminum frame, which is really nice. It's not only IP68 dust and water resistant, but it also has a drop to concrete resistance up to 1.3 EMS, and it is also MIL STD 810H compliant, which is, to my understanding, military grade compliance. So yeah, this phone is pretty indestructible as well. Now, I'm not going to test that, but I'm sure if there's not already a couple of channels to test that, there will be. Because again, this phone hasn't reached all of its markets yet that it's intended for. I don't even think it's actually officially reached the United States yet, but I could be wrong. But speaking of which, this phone does work in the US amazingly. It does get 5G on AT&T and T-Mobile with VoLTE, so you got that there. It may work on Verizon. I know the official US model may work on Verizon. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and they advertise it if it does, and likewise they advertise it if it doesn't. But yeah, this phone is blazing fast. The internet, the speed, I use Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 powered phones. I have a couple of them, and this phone keeps up with them. So, and I love Motorola's minimalistic UI. It's near stock Android, stock-ish Android, as I try to say. Again, it has Ready for. It's guaranteed 3 OS updates, which I think is really good. A lot of people are knocking it, but Samsung does 4. This does 3. It's not that much of a difference. I guess, the price has a lot of play, a lot of say in that too, though. I think, for 900, you expect it to match Samsung. I get it. But nonetheless, I'm not trying to ramble on here. I hope y'all have enjoyed this video, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Peace out.